The shadows of Bran Castle. Perched high atop a rocky hill in the heart of Transylvania, Bran Castle loomed over the village below, its jagged spires piercing the darkened sky. Known as Dracula's castle by those who sought tales of vampires and horror, the fortress had a far older and darker history than even Bram Stoker's imagination could conjure. Generations of whispered rumors spoke of curses, restless spirits, and an ancient evil lurking within its walls. For historian Elena Dracula, it was the perfect setting for her latest research expedition. Elena arrived on a cold, misty evening. The castle's silhouette was barely visible through the fog, giving it an ethereal, almost otherworldly appearance. She had spent years researching the legends surrounding Vlad the Impaler, the historical figure often associated with Bran Castle. But her true goal was more personal. She sought to uncover the truth about her family's alleged ties to the infamous voivode of Wallachia. The villagers, however, were less than enthusiastic about her mission. "You should leave before night falls," an old woman warned her at the inn. "The castle is no place for the living. Especially not for one with your name." Elena dismissed the warning with a polite smile, though a twinge of unease settled in her chest. She had heard such superstitions before, but they only deepened her resolve. As she made her way to the castle, the path seemed to grow darker, the trees leaning in as if to swallow her whole. By the time she reached the gates, she could feel the weight of the castle's gaze upon her, as if it were a living entity. The first night, whispers in the dark. The caretaker, a gaunt man named Nikolai, greeted Elena with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "You're brave to stay here alone," he said, his voice low. "The castle, it remembers. Be careful where you tread." Nikolai handed her a set of ancient iron keys and departed quickly, leaving Elena to explore the castle's vast and labyrinthine interior. The halls were a blend of medieval grandeur and eerie decay. Tapestries depicting battles and feasts hung beside narrow windows, while the faint scent of wax and damp stone permeated the air. Elena began her research in the library, poring over dusty tomes and manuscripts. The hours slipped by unnoticed until a sudden noise broke her concentration, a faint, almost imperceptible whisper. She looked up, her heart pounding. The room was empty, yet the sound persisted, growing louder. "Elena!" She froze. The voice was soft and distant, but unmistakably human. Gathering her courage, she followed the sound, which seemed to lead her deeper into the castle. The whispers grew clearer, accompanied by the faint echo of footsteps. They led her to a locked door she had not noticed before. As she inserted the key, her hand trembled. Beyond the door lay a spiral staircase descending into darkness. The crypt below. Elena's lantern cast flickering shadows on the damp stone walls as she descended the staircase. The air grew colder with each step, and a sense of foreboding settled over her. At the bottom, she found herself in a crypt, its walls lined with ancient sarcophagi. The whispers ceased, replaced by an oppressive silence. She approached the largest sarcophagus, its lid adorned with intricate carvings of serpents and wolves. A chill ran through her as she traced the inscription, Draculesti, her surname. Suddenly, the lantern flickered and went out, plunging the crypt into darkness. Elena's breath quickened as she fumbled for her matches. When she struck one, the brief flare of light illuminated a figure standing at the edge of the room. It was a man, tall and cloaked, his eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "Who are you?" Elena demanded, her voice shaking. The figure did not answer. Instead, he took a step forward, and she realized with mounting horror that his feet did not touch the ground. The match burned her fingers, and she dropped it, plunging the room back into darkness. When she lit another, the figure was gone, but the oppressive feeling of being watched remained. The second night, the blood-stained chamber. Despite her fear, Elena refused to abandon her mission. The next day, she uncovered a map of the castle that revealed a hidden passage leading to a chamber known only as the Camera Sangiului, the blood-stained chamber. The name sent a shiver down her spine, but she knew she had to investigate. The passage was concealed behind a false panel in the dining hall. Elena pushed it open and entered a narrow corridor that sloped downward. The air grew colder as she descended, and the faint smell of iron reached her nose. At the end of the passage, she found a heavy wooden door marked with strange symbols. Inside, the chamber was small and unadorned, save for a stone altar at its center. The floor was stained dark with what she could only assume was ancient blood. Chains hung from the walls, and a sense of overwhelming dread filled the air. Elena took photographs and made notes, her hands trembling. As she turned to leave, the door slammed shut with a deafening crash. The temperature plummeted, and a deep, guttural growl echoed through the room. Elena spun around, but the chamber was empty. Then, a voice spoke, low and menacing. "You should not have come here." The growl grew louder, and shadows began to coalesce in the corners of the room. Desperate, Elena shouted, "Who are you? What do you want?" The shadows surged toward her, and for a moment, she felt an unbearable pressure, as if unseen hands were gripping her chest. Then, as quickly as it had begun, the presence vanished, and the door creaked open. Gasping for air, Elena stumbled out of the chamber, her mind racing with questions. The third night, the confrontation. On her final night in Bran Castle, Elena resolved to confront the entity that haunted her. Armed with a recording device, a crucifix, and a journal filled with her findings, she returned to the crypt. The air was thick with tension, and every step echoed ominously in the silence. She stood before the sarcophagus bearing her family's name and spoke aloud. "I know you're here. Show yourself." The temperature dropped sharply, and the room was bathed in an unnatural red light. The cloaked figure appeared again, his glowing eyes fixed on her. This time, he spoke. "You carry the blood of the Draculesti. Why do you seek me?" Elena's voice wavered, but she held her ground. "I seek the truth. Are you Vlad?" The figure chuckled, a sound that sent chills down her spine. "I am more than he ever was. I am what remains when blood and hatred consume the soul." Elena raised the crucifix. "You're a curse upon this place. You must let go." The figure recoiled slightly, but his expression turned to one of rage. "You think a symbol can banish me? Foolish girl. The blood of the Draculesti binds you to me. You cannot escape." The room began to shake, and the crypt's walls seemed to close in. Elena's heart raced as she clutched the crucifix tighter. "If my blood binds me to you, then I reject it. I reject the hatred and fear you thrive on." The figure let out a roar, his form flickering like a dying flame. The shaking ceased, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. The figure's voice, now faint, whispered, "You cannot destroy me. Not entirely. The legacy." As dawn broke, Elena emerged from the castle, her face pale but resolute. She carried with her evidence of her experiences, recordings, photographs, and a renewed sense of purpose. The entity within Bran Castle had not been destroyed, but she had faced it and survived. More importantly, she had reclaimed her family's narrative, separating truth from legend. Back in the village, the old woman who had warned her looked at Elena with a mix of fear and respect. "You've seen the darkness," she said. "But beware. It has seen you, too." Elena nodded, understanding the weight of her experience. The shadows of Bran Castle would always linger, but she had brought their story into the light. And though the whispers of the castle might call to her in dreams, she knew she would never forget the horrors she had faced within its ancient walls.